All right, guys, let's talk about this. I did cover this before. Chicago street gangs irritated by the Venezuelan street gangs moving in to their territory.
One gang member, who only gave his name as David on a particularly dangerous drug dealing corner on the South Side, did not hold back when he talked about the influx of criminal gangs from other countries into Chicago.
The real issue is that America has allowed gangs to enter our country. Gangs that they would consider terrorist groups that are formed here. We are terrorist groups if we're in a gang. They let terrorists in our country.
Chicago, of all cities, always been known as a gang city. It's my hometown. The amount of debt that the Chicago government is in, almost $1 billion worth of debt. So there's tons of problems, and this is just something that is poised to boil over in the street.
Gangs in Chicago are angry over the influx of migrants and criminals in their city. They say money that should be going to the African American community on the South Side is instead going to what they call non-citizens, and warn that turf wars between Chicago's gangs and groups like Venezuela's Tren de Aragua could see Chicago, quote, go up in flames. Photographer Matt McDermott and I traveled to Chicago's South Side to see what was happening for ourselves after we heard about a police report last month that the Tren de Aragua gang had taken over an office building there. We spoke to a number of young, hardcore gang members, as well as gang elders who have retired from the life, and just regular citizens who are very much part of the community. And they're all furious at the estimated $500 million that's reportedly been funneled toward new migrants in Chicago since 2022. And they aren't happy either about what they say are Venezuelan criminal gangs that are leaving the shelters and spilling out into the South Side into abandoned buildings. I spoke to Tyrone Muhammad of Ex-Cons for Trump, who runs a street patrol and violence prevention program. He's gone straight since his days as an enforcer for the Gangster Disciples. And he said the situation is very tense on the South Side as turf battles between the local gangs and Venezuelan migrants heat up.
I have a video on TikTok right now on the Crucial Combo account. It's almost about 3 million views right now. There were a lot of, first of all, the video was about a Chicago street dude, unknown street dude, that had given a warning to Venezuelan migrant gangs, right? I had a lot of comments in the video. Some people were talking about that they're happy that Chicago street gangs are not going to have it, and a lot of pride for, the American gang standing up for the streets. And then there were a lot of comments talking about that this was some type of propaganda or some type of Trump propaganda made up to go against the left and kamalaharris and the whole Democratic Party. And this is a real problem of letting that many people into the country. And when you talk about the gang members that are part of those millions of people that come into the country, you have real gang members encroaching on American gangs' territory.
It is impossible to release gang members and criminals into our country through the borders and broken walls, and then infiltrate them in our community that's already impoverished, that's already broken, that's already disinvested. And when the black gangs, the leadership in the black gangs in Chicago get fed up with the illegalities and the criminal activity of these migrants or non-citizens, the city of Chicago is going to go up in smoke, it's going to go up in flame, and there's going to be nothing that the National Guard or our government can do about it when the bloodshed hit the streets.
There's no way that you can take, let's say, Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords and all the other subsets of gangs and drop them in the middle of Venezuela and think that the native gangs there are not going to have a problem with American gangs roaming their streets. For those of you who don't live in sanctuary cities or don't live in these communities where you see this every day, you may think, oh, this is just propaganda. This isn't real. It's very, very real.
Zach Massey did time in state prison with Tyrone Muhammad, although he's only 27. He's a leader on the streets and said he's disgusted by the money going to Venezuelan migrants at the expense, he says, of the African American community.
I finally actually talked to him on the translator app, and he told me all the things that he got going on, how they help him get a car, apartment, clothes, link. So it's just I just be looking at it like they ain't got no social security number. Where they come from? He probably not even here legally.
They get right here, they get quick housing, quick funding, food. They get cars with no license. They can't even read English and stuff like that. So they get all these perks when they get here, and we still here starving. So what we gonna do about it? Are y'all gonna listen to our cries?
Corey Rogers was a Blackstone gang member for years. He drove us around the South Side and showed us areas where he said Trendo Awagwa and other criminal gangs are setting up shop and what he called showing the flag, which means brandishing their weapons in front of like a housing project.
The migrants that are coming, they're taking over every block right now in this area. Right now, you don't see them because they come out at night. They said they took this courtway over probably about last week. He said it was 100 Venezuelans standing out in the front right here.
Terry, is it an abandoned building? How do they just take it over?
They just, when you take over something, you just stand outside, and that's called showing the flag.
What kind of guns do they have?
Semi-automatics, anything you name, you're gonna see it on the street. These boys got so many big guns that if they're 150 pounds, the gun is bigger than them. I swear.
But they know how to handle it, right? They know what. Tell me about the fact that they're criminals, right? This is a criminal element. These aren't just a bunch of Venezuelans that walked over the border and used to be gardeners back home, right?
Right. They come from the gangland.
When people go to the ballots this November, you're going to see that there are tons of people who typically, now Chicago's a blue state. Let's make no mistake about it. Chicago's a blue state. It may always be a blue state, but let me tell you, the Democrat Party has bled a large amount of voters that they would have normally gotten.